and then they die. Good morning and good afternoon. Thanks everyone for joining Synoptic on our webinar, Maximize Your ROI in the Cloud. This is going to be kind of our complete cloud readiness assessment on Azure and AWS. And we want to keep this as interactive as possible. If you have any questions, there's a chat window. If you have any, feel free, and we'll have open Q&A at the end of this. But feel free to type any questions that come to you throughout the webinar. From a high-level agenda standpoint, we're going to cover who Synoptic is, cloud journey, what is a cloud readiness assessment, why anyone would want to select a cloud readiness assessment, and why choose Synoptic for it. And then at the end, an exclusive offer that we have. So my name is Darren White. I'm the director of our cloud advancement practice here at Synoptic. I have 20 plus years of technology consulting focused on mainly strategy, assessment, application migrations, modernization, cost optimization, etc., and really been in about every industry under the sun. So I'll hand off to Ken.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ken Knox. I am the Director of Cloud Consulting and Synoptic's Azure Global Lead, and I've been in consulting for the vast majority of my career, covered every industry imaginable, as well as technologies, started way back in the day. So hopefully we can help you guys along your journey.
Yeah. And Ken and I really don't like to put a hard number around those because we like to blur them out because it's so many years that add up. So for those of you that aren't familiar with Synoptic, Synoptic is a global technology consulting firm with managed service provider capabilities. We try to deliver, we have multiple offerings that we provide our customers. We want to try to help them through their digital transformation. So at the bottom of the wheel on the left, you'll see cloud advancements. That's the practice that Ken and I sit in. We have infrastructure that focuses more on on-premise technology, cybersecurity. It's look at your overall security maturity. We have product development, so we have a customer experience. We're going to look at mobile apps, custom apps, etc. Our workforce productivity really focuses on a lot of Office products. It's going to be Microsoft 365, SharePoint, Teams, etc. Business applications, we have practices like Dynamics, ServiceNow, etc., off-the-shelf type of products. And then last, digital insights. Everything these days is data-driven, and really to try to help those organizations be more competitive against their competition and be a little bit more innovative. So we have over 1,000 FTEs in-house, over 5,000 certifications, and we have an Azure Expert MSP badge. We're advanced tier with AWS and gold partner with Microsoft. You'll see a list of some of the industries at the bottom that we mainly where the majority of our clients sit. However, I would say we're about in every industry segment available. So you ask yourself, what is a cloud readiness assessment? A lot of executives, before they start their journey to the cloud, need to understand really what are my costs going to be associated with running any workloads in the cloud. So as part of that cloud readiness assessment, one of the key deliverables is to produce a total cost of ownership of what that would look like. So we do an apples to apples comparison of where you're currently running and then where your target state potentially would be. So we assume that, you joining this call, your organization is starting with the tip of the process, which would be the cloud first strategy. It doesn't mean everything is going in the cloud. However, someone has made the executive decision that, hey, everything going forward, we probably want to evaluate if it's going to be a good fit, run in the cloud. And so then Ken will walk through what the formal process typically is. But at the end of this, then we want to talk about a one-time assessment that potentially then could benefit you and your organization. Ken, I'll hand off to you and let him walk him through the kind of assessment process.
Thanks, Darren. So as our cloud readiness assessment really focuses on that first step in that journey, the assessment phase, if you will, on that path. So what we're really trying to do here is we're going to come in and do some rapid discovery. We use a combination of uh, an assessment tool that can look at your workloads, draw back some telemetry information about them, utilization, that sort of thing, and help with the sizing of those devices and those workloads in a lift and shift move to a cloud hyperscale provider. We'll provide estimated pricing around that to help with your total cost of ownership um, discussion and argument. We'll also ask some questions and help develop that TCO model. Looking at what are you paying today? Hopefully, you've got some of that information available. If you're in a data center, what are you paying? For the rack space, power, air conditioning, those sorts of things. If it's in your facility, those numbers can sometimes be a little bit more difficult to gather, but we'll help walk you through what the questions to ask so that we can help you build that case. And then we'll also have discussions with you around business case and what are the drivers, what are your business drivers for moving workloads to the cloud, and help with the creation of that business case and some of the justification and reasoning for leveraging the cloud along the way. Um, once we're done with that assessment, uh, we can then move on, and if it's something you'd like to engage us more on, we can move into readiness planning and then ultimately, hopefully, doing application and workload migrations. Darren kind of covered some of these points already, but why do you need to do a cloud readiness assessment? And the reasoning behind this is, as we mentioned, building the business case, building that total cost of ownership um, strategy and approach for moving to the cloud. And it's making sure that your your business requirements and IT are in alignment. Right? We need to make sure that the business requirements are what are driving your strategy, as opposed to IT wanting to just move to the cloud because it's cool. And believe me, it is cool. Um, but also we can start to take a look at your workloads and start talking about, are they does it make sense to move them to the cloud? There are instances where workloads don't make sense in going, or maybe they need to be modified if they're moved to a hyperscale provider. And it's really about understanding what they are and what the drivers are for moving those along the way. And then, as part of the readiness assessment and getting all of this data, that really helps in that next step, in that planning and uh, the design of where are you going to go next. So all of this feeds in and just sort of helps keep that journey moving, starting it on the right foot and keeping it moving in the right direction. And Darren, I'll send this back to you to talk about one of the case studies.
Perfect. Thanks, Ken. So Ken and I recently worked with this client. They're they're national engineering in oil and gas. And so they had made a lot of acquisitions in the past. And then in the last couple of years, they were forced with kind of some headwind constraints with their business. And they were looking to consolidate and do a reduced spend. So their CFO was chartered with, hey, where can we really see some significant gains in regards to our overall IT budget? And so what we wanted to do is really look and analyze what their current situation was. We analyzed, all their CapEx, OpEx, and all of that, their colo facility spend and labor, and try to kind of quantify that and compare apples to apples. So we looked at their as-is environment, Azure, AWS, and we also offered Synoptic, what we call our Synoptic Private Cloud, and looked at those four and for each line item to compare which was going to be the best choice for them based off their internal operating model. A lot of their IT skill sets really probably didn't map well to the cloud. So they were looking for a strategic partner, and that's where Synoptic kind of was able to lean in and assist them. And so during that process, we did the total cost of ownership. We performed an app rationalization with, a lot of those acquisitions. Sometimes they had 5 redundant applications that we could easily sunset and show some significant cost savings. So we migrated over 130 plus VMs. And then the first month or so, once we kind of got everything migrated over, we roughly cut their bill in half on their overall OpEx. So we saw 41,000 a month by year 1, and by year 3 it was 70,000 a month. So I think they went from 80 something thousand down to roughly 10 by year 3, and they just extended their contract with us in the last, let's say, 3 months or so. So they've been a strong partner, and we can have that continuous improvement, over the years to kind of right size a lot of those workloads that are currently running in the cloud. So why choose Synoptic for your cloud readiness assessment? Well, one thing, we have the skill sets and the experience. So we have cloud certified solution architects that are going to look over your digital landscape and be able to determine, really what is going to be the best approach for you and your organization. I mean, kind of like Ken mentioned before, not every workload is going to be an ideal candidate for, the public cloud. I'll give you one use case that, ran into where, individuals like similar before working on oil rigs, they wear a gas detector around it's almost around their calf. So if a field engineer is walking and he gets exposed to that, it can drop them in a matter of milliseconds. And so they want to detect it before it gets up to their nose. It's almost like, the canary in the coal mine. And so they can back off. So you probably don't want that detector or anything else in that data running in the cloud. It's going to be more at the edge, similar to a lot of the IoT plays. Look at Tesla. You want that car making real-time decisions versus having to have some potential bandwidth issues. So we look at all those from a business perspective and then try to apply that to the current, options that you have in the cloud. Is it infrastructure as a service? Is it a PaaS or a SaaS that's going to be the best fit for you? And what we have today is an exclusive offer that we would schedule a one-on-one discovery call with you and whomever you feel fit within the organization to conduct a high-level 2-week free assessment. What Ken kind of showed you initially on that second phase probably got into the more what we would call our detailed assessment, but this one would really peel back the onion on that total cost of ownership. So we look at what you have today, what it would take in order to lift and shift and run those in one of your target cloud platforms. Typically, the majority of our clients are Azure, AWS, and that's where the offer is for today. And so you have a link that you can contact us, reach out, and then someone from our team will reach out to you and engage to make sure that we kind of follow our internal process. So with that said, we're going to open it up to any questions and answers. And then if we run out of those, feel free to reach out to anyone, that you have the contact information that sent out the webinar information, and we'll be happy to follow up with you. So Ken, I'm looking at the questions. I don't currently see any. However, if I was a user, what would kind of be some core questions? Top of mind of, how long does it take Synoptic to typically engage? Our internal process is normally 2 weeks. We will write a kind of we call it a blanket sal, where it's really would show you really what it would take, the scope of it, and it's $0 cost to you. Internally, it takes us roughly 2 weeks to process that paperwork, and then we could start and engage.
One of the questions we often get is, how do I find out how much it's going to cost to run my environments in Azure or AWS? And where we start is we've got a couple of different tool sets that we leverage depending on which whether it's Azure or AWS that we're targeting along the way. We do have an agnostic tool that can potentially help provide pricing for both along the way. But the quick way to get this started is with an inventory list of what you're running in your world today, physical, virtual, understanding what those workloads look like. We can take those. We've got calculators for doing that high level cost or run rate calculation for you. So that's really where we start the process, at least from a cost calculation perspective. And then we'll also ask along the way for, what do you know, as I mentioned earlier, about your pricing? What are you paying today, right? What does it cost for the data center space that you're in? Oftentimes, if you own your own or you have a server room on premise, those numbers can be a little bit more difficult to nail down. So we can use some estimates to help fill in that gap and again help with that TCO calculation.
Yeah, and to that point, I mean, if you are talking to someone in the IT department, they should be able to relate to, normally they'll call it their CMDB or asset inventory. If you can get an export of that and submit us to us, we could then produce something that can at least get you directionally correct.
There was a question, will we need to differentiate between Microsoft-centric workloads and other apps? The answer to that is no. Both Azure and AWS fully support both Windows and Linux workloads, custom workloads along the way. So we can have that discussion as well about what do your workloads look like. They don't have to be Microsoft-centric at all.
Does anyone else have any further questions? And there's one. I have 2 data centers where I want to find out how much it's going to cost to run my environments in the AWS cloud. How do I get started with a migration assessment that I receive cost to run, the cost to migrate? That's a good question. Typically, what we would do is run the cloud readiness assessment. We would look at your total digital estate. I mean, everyone's going to vary between, let's just say 10 and 1,000. And so we want to determine, what that overall workload is going to be. So we're going to either look at maybe the lift and shift. We prefer you minimize the risk, you minimize the change, but some application teams might want to replatform some of those, et cetera. So we take all of that into account, but then that's going to be part of that high level assessment phase. And then what we would do is then normally give a level of effort for the full migration. We also have strategic partnerships with both of the hyperscale providers, with AWS and Azure, and we like to try to leverage some of their alliance funds to help offset some of the costs for those migrations. So please keep that in mind. There's kind of there's some benefits for being where we are as advanced partners that we can leverage for a lot of our clients. With that said, if we don't see any more questions, we appreciate everyone's time. Thanks for joining us. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us anytime. Thanks a lot. Have a great afternoon.
Thanks, everyone.